The biting Chicago wind, a relentless January hound, whipped around Elijah Eli Cole as he stood sentinel across from the Redwood Community Center. The building, a three-story brick testament to faded hope and stubborn resilience, was nestled deep in the city's south side, a neighborhood more accustomed to sirens than motorcades. Eli, dressed in dark, unassuming civilian clothes, thermal undershirt, a heavy wool sweater, rugged jeans, and broken-in work boots, blended into the gritty urban tapestry. He looked like any other man enduring the cold, not like the lead security operative for Ambassador Imani Adebayo, global peace envoy, and a woman whose quiet words could shift international tides. Ambassador Adebayo was inside the Redwood Center for a discreet, off-the-record meeting with local community leaders. No press, no entourage, just her senior aide, and Eli running point on unobtrusive security. It was her way to understand the roots before addressing the branches. Eli's task was simple: observe the perimeter, ensure no unwelcome attention, and be the unseen shield. His gaze, sharp and constantly scanning, missed nothing: the flicker of a curtain in a third-story window, the way a group of teenagers huddled for warmth in a nearby alley, the slow cruise of a battered sedan down the block. He'd just completed a final sweep and was now maintaining a low-profile watch from a recessed doorway, the cold seeping into his bones despite his layers. He clutched a small, hardened Pelican case in his gloved hand. It wasn't a weapon, it contained a secure satellite communication device loaded with critical, time-sensitive intelligence for the ambassador regarding an imminent threat to the upcoming Geneva Peace Summit, information he'd received just hours ago from an embedded asset. The summit was less than 72 hours away. A squad car, old and bearing the scars of city service, rumbled slowly down the street. Eli noted it, logged it mentally: Officers Rourke and McCall, according to the scrawled names visible on their last patrol pass. He'd seen them circle twice already in the past hour. Now, it slowed, then pulled sharply to the curb a dozen yards from him. Two officers emerged, their thick winter coats making them appear even larger. The older one, Rourke, had a face like sour milk and eyes that seemed to automatically categorize everyone as a suspect. The younger, McCall, was a nervous shadow, eager to please his partner. Rourke jerked his chin towards Eli. "Hey, you." "Yeah, you, pal. Whatcha doing lurking in doorways? This ain't a flophouse." Eli straightened, his posture relaxed but alert. "Just waiting, officer." "Waiting for what?" Rourke's voice was a gravelly sneer. He and McCall approached, their boots crunching on the salt-strewn sidewalk. "A handout? Or maybe something to fall off a truck?" "Neither," Eli said, his tone even, betraying no annoyance. "I'm on official business." McCall snorted. "Official business? Dressed like that? What, you the official neighborhood watch for frozen statues?" He nudged Rourke, who didn't crack a smile. "Let me see some ID," Rourke demanded, his hand resting near the butt of his holstered weapon. Eli slowly reached into his inner jacket pocket and produced his State Department credentials, a special, nondescript version designed for low-visibility operations. It identified him as a government consultant. Rourke snatched it, his eyes narrowing as he examined it under the dim streetlight. "Government consultant?" Rourke read aloud, his voice dripping with suspicion. "Consulting on what?" "How to look like you're about to mug someone." He handed it back dismissively. "This doesn't mean jack to me. What kind of official business has you skulking around the Redwood Center on a Tuesday night in a blizzard?" "I'm afraid that information is confidential, officer," Eli stated calmly. "I can assure you, my presence here is authorized." "Oh, confidential, is it?" Rourke's eyes glinted. He clearly relished the confrontation. "We got a real spook here, McCall. Thinks he's too important for local law enforcement." He stepped closer, invading Eli's personal space. "Around here, when we see someone acting suspicious, looking like they don't belong, we ask questions. And when they give us lip about confidential business, we get real curious." "What's in the case?" He nodded towards the Pelican case Eli held.
That's also confidential, Eli said, his gaze unwavering. He knew where this was going. He'd seen this type of cop before, a bully with a badge, looking for a reason to escalate. I'm tired of this confidential crap, Rourke snarled. You're obstructing an investigation. You match the description of a suspect in a series of break-ins in this area. A blatant lie, Eli knew. There had been no such recent reports. I'm going to need you to open that case. Now. I am not authorized to do that, officer, Eli maintained. If you have a legitimate concern, you can contact my superiors. The number is on the credentials you just saw. Your superiors? Rourke laughed, a harsh, barking sound. I am the authority here, pal. And you're testing my patience. He made a sharp gesture to McCall. Cuff him. He's coming with us. We'll find out what's so confidential down at the precinct. McCall hesitated for a fraction of a second, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, but a glare from Rourke had him moving. Eli didn't resist physically. He knew that would only make things worse. He allowed McCall to wrench his arms behind him, the cold steel of the handcuffs biting into his wrists. You're making a mistake, officer, Eli said, his voice still controlled, but with an edge of warning. Yeah, tell it to the judge, Rourke jeered. He grabbed the Pelican case from Eli's grasp. Let's see what state secrets pretty boy here is protecting. He fumbled with the latches, but they were reinforced and required a specific pressure sequence to open. Frustrated, he shook it. What is this thing, locked up tighter than Fort Knox? It's sensitive equipment, Eli said. You could damage it. More importantly, you could trigger its internal data wipe protocol if you try to force it, he thought. Damage it? Rourke looked at Eli, a cruel smirk spreading across his face. Son, I think you're about to be damaged. He suddenly slammed the heavy Pelican case hard into Eli's gut. The air whooshed out of Eli's lungs in a silent gasp. Pain, sharp and blinding, exploded through his abdomen. He doubled over, the handcuffs digging deeper. McCall, startled, took a step back. What the hell, Frank? McCall whispered, shocked. He was resisting, Rourke said calmly, though his eyes were alight with a vicious pleasure. Tried to run. You saw it, didn't you, McCall? He didn't wait for an answer. He drove his knee into Eli's thigh, sending another wave of agony through him. Eli grunted, fighting to stay conscious, to keep his training at the forefront, assess, endure, wait for an opening. Now, are you going to tell me how to open this, or do we need to continue this consultation? Rourke growled, pressing the case against Eli's ribs. Through a haze of pain, Eli shook his head slightly. Not authorized. Rourke's face contorted in fury. Stubborn bastard, huh? He looked around. The street was deserted now, the earlier witnesses having scurried away from the escalating violence. All right. We'll do this the hard way. He shoved Eli towards the squad car. Get him in. We'll open this toy box at the station. And then we'll have a nice long chat with Mr. Confidential. As they manhandled Eli into the back of the car, his head hit the doorframe. Stars burst behind his eyes. He tasted blood. The Pelican case was thrown onto the passenger seat next to Rourke. McCall got behind the wheel, his face pale, avoiding Eli's gaze in the rearview mirror. At the 22nd precinct, the atmosphere was thick with stale coffee and institutional apathy. Rourke, swaggering, dragged Eli to an interrogation room, a small, grim box with a metal table and 2 chairs. He shoved Eli into one, the impact jarring his already aching body. McCall, go get the evidence kit, Rourke ordered. And a couple of phone books. Old school, but effective. He grinned at Eli. We're going to find out who you are, what you're up to, and why you think you can disrespect Chicago's finest. And we're going to open this case, one way or another. McCall returned, not with phone books,
but with a standard evidence bag and a worried frown.
Frank, maybe we should just log the case and wait for a warrant. Tech crimes can get specialists to open it if it's that sensitive.
Specialists?
Rourke scoffed. We are the specialists in getting scumbags to talk.
He's a nobody, McCall.
A mouthy street punk with a fancy briefcase trying to act tough. Give me that crowbar from the trunk.
Eli watched, his mind racing despite the throbbing pain.
The intelligence in that case was vital. Ambassador Adebayo needed it now. If Rourke forced the case open improperly, the data would self-destruct.
And the physical damage from the prying could render the SATCOM unusable even if the data survived. He had to protect it, but he also had to find a way to get word to the ambassador. He was isolated, injured, and his captors were growing more aggressive by the minute. Rourke returned, a small pry bar in his hand.
Last chance, hero, he said to Eli, his voice a low threat. The combination. Or this gets messy.
And trust me, by the time I'm done, you'll be begging to tell me. He placed the tip of the pry bar against the seam of the Pelican case.
Eli closed his eyes for a moment, steeling himself. He thought of the ambassador, of the lives potentially at stake at the Geneva summit. He thought of his duty.
He opened his eyes, his gaze locking with Rourke's.
You have no idea what you're dealing with. Rourke laughed. Oh, I think I do.
I'm dealing with a black man who got too big for his britches. And I'm about to take him down a few pegs. He applied pressure to the pry bar. A sickening crack echoed in the small room, not the case opening, but the sound of reinforced plastic beginning to splinter under extreme force.
Eli knew he had only moments. The case's internal failsafes would be activating.
The countdown to data erasure had begun. And his window to save the mission, and himself, was closing with every brutal tick of the clock.
The splintering sound galvanized Eli.
Despite the fire in his ribs and the fog in his head, his training kicked in. Rourke was focused entirely on the case, his back partially turned, McCall a nervous spectator.
It was a sliver of an opening, but it was all he had.
The case has a geolocator and a distress beacon, Eli said, his voice raspy but clear.
Activated by unauthorized tampering. My superiors will know its exact location and that it's under duress.
They'll also know your precinct. Rourke paused, the pry bar still wedged.
He glanced at Eli, then at the case.
A flicker of doubt crossed his face, quickly replaced by bravado.
You're bluffing. Trying to save your skin. But he didn't immediately resume prying. Am I? Eli challenged softly. That equipment is worth more than this entire precinct building. It's tracked by satellite. How long do you think before federal agents are kicking down your door asking why you're destroying classified government property and assaulting a federal operative?
He was embellishing slightly on the federal operative part, but the core threat of the equipment's value and tracking was real. McCall shifted nervously.
Frank, maybe he's right. If that thing is military, we could be in deep crap. Shut up, McCall.
Rourke snapped, but his conviction was wavering. He lowered the pry bar.
All right, smart guy.
So, you're not some street trash.
Who are you really? And who do you work for that gives you toys like this?
Before Eli could formulate a careful answer, the door to the interrogation room burst open. Standing framed in the doorway was not a federal agent, but a figure of such immediate and palpable authority that both Rourke and McCall froze.
Ambassador Imani Adebayo.
She was no longer in the understated attire she'd worn to the community center. Somehow, in the short time since Eli had lost contact, she had transformed. She now wore a sharply tailored navy blue pantsuit that spoke of power and precision. Her expression was a glacial mask of controlled fury. Flanking her were two serious-looking individuals, a stern-faced woman Eli recognized as her chief of staff, Ms. Albright, and a large, imposing black man in a dark suit who was clearly high-level diplomatic security.
Officers Rourke and McCall, I presume? Ambassador Adebayo's voice was quiet, yet it filled the small room with an icy authority that made the air crackle. Rourke, momentarily stunned, recovered his bluster. Who the hell are you? This is a restricted area. You can't just barge in here. The ambassador's gaze, cold enough to freeze mercury, settled on Rourke. I am Ambassador Imani Adebayo, Global Peace Envoy for the United States. And you, Officer Rourke, are currently in possession of my lead security operative, Elijah Cole, and a piece of highly classified diplomatic equipment vital to national security. Equipment which, I see, you were attempting to vandalize. Her eyes flicked to the pry bar, then to the damaged Pelican case. Rourke's jaw sagged. McCall looked like he was about to be physically ill. The name Imani Adebayo was not one you forgot. She was a constant presence on international news, a woman who negotiated with warlords and presidents. The realization of who they had assaulted, who they had in their custody, hit them with the force of a physical blow. Ambassador, Rourke stammered, his face draining of all color. There's been a misunderstanding. This man, he was acting suspiciously, he wouldn't identify himself properly. Mr. Cole identified himself with State Department credentials, which you dismissed, Ambassador Adebayo stated, her voice unwavering. He informed you his business was confidential, which it is. He was conducting a security assessment under my direct orders. And your response was to assault him, unlawfully detain him, and attempt to destroy vital government property. She took a step into the room, Ms. Albright and the diplomatic security agent following closely. I have already been in contact with the mayor's office, the police commissioner, and the regional head of the FBI. They are all exceedingly interested in this situation. Eli, watching from his chair, allowed himself a small, internal sigh of relief, though the pain was still a throbbing reality. The ambassador had found him. The cavalry had arrived. Ma'am, with all due respect, Rourke pleaded, his voice now desperate, we didn't know. He didn't say who he was with. And would it have mattered, officer? The ambassador cut him off, her eyes blazing. Does a citizen need to be with someone important to be treated with basic human dignity and respect? To not be brutalized by those sworn to protect them? Or do you reserve your professionalism only for those you deem worthy? She looked at Eli, her expression softening for a moment with concern. Elijah, are you seriously injured? I'll live, Ambassador, Eli said, though his voice was strained. The intel is secure. For now. He nodded at the case. Ambassador Adebayo's attention snapped back to Rourke. The contents of that case are critical to preventing a potential international incident at the Geneva summit. Your actions have not only violated Mr. Cole's rights but have also placed sensitive negotiations and potentially countless lives at risk by delaying the transmission of this intelligence. She gestured to her own security agent. Secure Mr. Cole and the package. The agent moved swiftly, helping Eli to his feet and carefully taking the damaged Pelican case. Ms. Albright was already on her secure comlink, arranging for immediate medical attention for Eli and a secure technical team to assess the case. As for you two, Ambassador Adebayo said, her voice dropping to a lethal calm as she addressed Rourke and McCall, who now looked utterly broken. Your careers in law enforcement are over. I will see to it personally. Beyond that, there will be a full federal investigation into your conduct, not just tonight, but your entire service records. Every complaint, every questionable arrest, every use of force incident. It will all come under scrutiny. She paused, letting her words sink in. You picked the wrong man to bully tonight, gentlemen. You assaulted an officer of the Diplomatic Security Service and interfered in matters of international peace. You embody the very corruption and abuse of power that I spend my life fighting against on a global scale. To find it so flagrantly displayed in my own country, by those who wear a badge of public trust, it is an outrage I will not tolerate. The precinct captain, a flustered, sweating man named Henderson, finally arrived, having been summoned from his bed.
He took one look at Ambassador Adebayo, the grim faces of her staff, the battered Elijah Cole, and the terrified expressions of Rourke and McCall, and knew he was walking into a Category 5 disaster.
Ambassador Adebayo.
Captain Henderson, 22nd Precinct.
I am so sorry. I had no idea. What can I do?
You can start by relieving these two officers of their duties and their weapons, pending a full investigation, Captain, Ambassador Adebayo said sharply.
And you can ensure that Mr. Cole receives a formal apology from this department, though I doubt it will suffice. She turned to Eli. We need to get you to a secure medical facility, Elijah. And then we need to get that intelligence transmitted. As Eli was helped out, he looked back at Rourke and McCall. They were slumped, defeated, the embodiment of arrogance brought low. Rourke wouldn't meet his gaze. McCall was openly weeping. The city's justice system would deal with them now, but their true punishment was the public stripping of their power and the knowledge that their own bigotry and brutality had been their undoing. The next few days were a blur for Eli: medical checks, debriefings, and working with the tech team to ensure the crucial intel from the recovered Pelican case was relayed securely to Geneva. The threat to the summit was neutralized thanks to the information he had protected. The ambassador personally oversaw every detail, her fury at the injustice Eli suffered fueling her determination. The fallout for Rourke and McCall was severe. The internal and federal investigations uncovered a pattern of misconduct, racial profiling, and excessive force complaints that had been systematically buried by the precinct. Both were fired, stripped of their pensions, and faced multiple felony charges, including aggravated assault, obstruction of justice, and civil rights violations. The Redwood community, emboldened by the ambassador's stand, came forward with more stories, leading to a broader probe into the 22nd Precinct. Eli recovered, the physical scars fading faster than the memory of the cold fury in Rourke's eyes. But he also remembered the ambassador's unwavering loyalty and her righteous anger. He had been the shepherd, guarding his flock. And when the wolves attacked, the lioness had come. Justice, in this instance, had a powerful voice and an international mandate. And for two corrupt officers who believed they were untouchable, it was a lesson delivered with devastating precision.